Okay, let's be real for a second. We've all been there, right? Staring out into the future, asking that huge, overwhelming question. What am I actually supposed to do with my life? What career is the right one for me? If you've ever felt that sense of being lost, or just plain confused about what path to take, then you are in exactly the right place. Because today, we're going to map out a clear path from that feeling of just aspiring to something to the reality of actually achieving it.
So let's kick things off with a pretty powerful thought experiment. I want you to imagine, just for a moment, that money is completely off the table. It's not a factor. Maybe every job pays the same, maybe you just won the lottery, whatever. The point is, you don't have to worry about the bills. Now, what work would you choose to do with your time? Nope, seriously, take a second and really think about that. Because that answer, whatever just popped into your head, that's the very first clue on this journey to figuring out what you're truly meant to do.
All right, so here's the game plan for today. First, we're going to tackle what's called the aspirant's dilemma. You know, that feeling of being stuck. Then, we'll get into some really practical tools for knowing yourself, like the Ocean model, which will help you find what we're calling your professional home ground. After that, we'll cover the 3 big signs that tell you you're on the right track. And finally, we'll wrap up by completely reframing how we think about this whole career journey thing.
So let's get right into it with our very first section.
So let's talk about what our source material calls the aspirant's dilemma. Does this sound familiar? You've got ambition, you've got this fire to do something great. But when you look at the future, it's just kind of blurry, right? It's this place where you're filled with self-doubt, you're constantly second-guessing your choices. But here's the most important thing to remember. This is not a sign that you're failing. It's actually the natural and totally necessary starting point for pretty much everyone.
And that, of course, leads us right to the solution, which all starts with knowing yourself.
So, okay, how do we actually get from that cloudy, confusing state to a place of real clarity? Well, the source material is super clear on this. The answer isn't looking outward for some perfect job title. Nope. It's about starting an inward journey, a journey of self-exploration. The whole idea is that before you can find the right work, you have to really, truly understand the worker, which is you. It's all about figuring out your core personality, what really motivates you, and what you're naturally good at.
And that brings us to a really practical tool that can help you do exactly that. Look, I get it. Knowing yourself can sound a little vague, a bit abstract. So let's make this super concrete with a framework called the Ocean model. You might have also heard of it as the Big Five. It's this really well-respected tool in psychology, and the basic idea is that your whole personality can be broken down into 5 main traits. Now, we all have a mix of these, but usually one of them is more dominant than the others. And figuring out which one is yours, it's not just a fun fact for a party, it's an absolute game changer for your career.
All right, let's break down what Ocean actually stands for. O is for openness. These are your creative, curious types who love exploring and hate routine. Think arts, science, entrepreneurship. C is for conscientiousness. These are the disciplined, focused folks who love structure and rules. They thrive in organized roles. E stands for extroversion. These are the social butterflies, the people who get their energy from being around others. Perfect for jobs that are all about engagement. A is for agreeableness. These are your amazing team players. They're cooperative, they love to help out, and they make fantastic employees. And finally, N is for neuroticism. This describes people who are more sensitive to stress and worry. They're going to do their best work in a stable, low-stress environment. So as I'm going through that list, did one of those just scream, "That's me"?
Because understanding that dominant trait of yours, well, that leads us directly to the next huge idea.
So why is this so incredibly important? Because it's the key to finding what our source material calls your home ground. And this slide, man, it just perfectly shows what happens when you're not on your home ground. Think about it, a fish trying to run a race on land, or a horse trying to swim across a river. Are they failures? Of course not. They're just in the completely wrong environment for their skills. And that is exactly what it feels like when your job is a total mismatch for your personality.
And this quote just nails it. The biggest source of stress is not finding your home ground. You know that feeling of constant struggle, of burnout? So much of that stress comes down to one simple thing. You are fighting against your own nature, day in and day out, because you haven't found the place where you can just naturally win.
So what exactly is this home ground we're talking about? Well, think of it as that perfect sweet spot. It's where your core personality, what the source even calls your inner animal, is a perfect match for your career. It's the place where the things you're naturally good at are the very things you need to do to succeed. And finding this spot, it's not just about feeling a little happier at work.
It's about being way more effective and literally saving yourself years of wasted time and stress.
Okay, so now for the really actionable part. How do you know you found it?
This all sounds great in theory, but how can you tell for sure if you found your home ground? Well, luckily, we've got a super simple 3-part litmus test. You just have to ask yourself 3 questions about the work you're doing. Number 1, timelessness. Do you lose track of time? Do hours just fly by? Number 2, effortlessness. Does the work actually feel, well, not easy, but like it doesn't drain every ounce of energy from you? And number 3, mindlessness. This is what a lot of people call the flow state. Do you get so absorbed in the task that you kind of forget about yourself? If you can say yes to all 3, then congratulations, you are on your home ground.
And that brings us to our final and maybe most important piece of the puzzle, a massive mindset shift.
Okay, we have got to stop thinking about our careers like some kind of linear race to a single finish line. I have to become director by 30, or I need to make partner. It's not a race. It's an exploration. The real goal isn't just to get to some predetermined destination. It's about what you discover about yourself and the world on the journey itself. That's where the real magic happens.
And if you need proof of why this journey mindset is so powerful, just look at history. Some of the biggest breakthroughs were total happy accidents. You had alchemists in ancient China trying to find a potion for eternal life, and they discovered gunpowder instead. Alexander Fleming finds penicillin because some mold accidentally grew in his lab. Wilson Greatbatch invented the pacemaker because he grabbed the wrong tiny part for a circuit he was building. The point is, when you're open to the journey, when you're not just laser-focused on one destination, you leave room for these incredible, world-changing accidents to happen.
And that brings us to this final, really powerful idea that ties everything together. Remember that mindlessness or flow state we talked about? When you find your home ground, that work that is so perfectly suited to you, you get so absorbed you completely forget yourself. And here's the beautiful paradox. It's in that very act of losing yourself in your passion that you create the very thing the world will remember you for. So I'll leave you with this question. What is the work that will make you forget yourself?